Let's go over my new song called Berlin. Now, if you're watching this in the future, just disregard the word new. Uh, this time this was made all with the modular. So in this case, for this video, I'm going to go into sections so I can cover a lot of the stuff what's going on. So let's go over the intro first. So let's just listen to the first 8 bars. Welcome to Berlin. 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 So you might be thinking, modular only. What's with the vocoder? Well, the vocoder it's an effect. So you can use in my theory, you could use effects because, you can just load all your stuff up. Oh, no, it's not modular only. You used effects. Okay, so let's go over the vocoder first. Solo this and just listen. Welcome to Berlin. So the trick with the vocoder is when you're recording your vocals, be as monotone as possible. So let's listen to the raw thing. Welcome to Berlin. Yep, very cringy, right? But that's the goal. You want to be as cringe as possible when you're recording your vocals for the vocoder, because you don't want to modulate it all, because you're going to be doing the modulation through the keys. So what I did was let's just listen to it again, and you can see that I'm going with the notes of the bass. Welcome to Berlin. Welcome to Berlin. So what I did was I just pasted the pattern for the bass, so it goes with it, and then it just modulates itself. It's all welcome to Berlin when the key goes up right here. So also you'll notice that I put a high pass on here. So listen what it sounds like without the high pass. You could barely even understand it. Welcome to Berlin. Even with the slew all the way up, which is like articulation. Didn't want to put the sub already because the notes were so low. If I put the sub up, it just clouded everything up. So you could barely even hear it. But with the dry, it was too much of my own voice. So I think I only put just a click of the dry up on it, because if you use more of the dry, welcome to Berlin, takes the whole effect out. So if you drop the dry, put the high pass on, welcome to Berlin, you can hear the words better while still having that classic vocoder effect, and then just EQ it, to taste. I just played around with this. I'm not super great at EQing, but I just kind of played around. It can be a bit harsh on some systems. I noticed that when I'm listening to these to my headphones right now, it can be a bit harsh, especially when when this part kicks in, when there's no beat to it. There's a little weird clicky noises, but other than that, that's how I achieve the vocoder effect. There shouldn't be, so I dropped the bass on it, mids all the way up. Maybe that's why it's kind of harsh. Your mid frequencies, that's where the loudness is. So maybe that's why it could be a bit harsh. Tiny bit of reverb, but with the reverb, I always put high frequency dampening on it, man. This reverb acts kind of weird. So let's go over the riser. The riser's super easy to make. All it is a, let's just turn this to pattern, solo this. It's just a saw wave and with a glided note. So it goes from C5 to C7 over probably 8 bars. Let's see what it is. No, actually it's a 4 bar thing, but I cut it off at 3. Let's just do the kick real quick. So 4 on the floor kick. Now, if we listen to it, nice punchy kick. I think it sounds actually really good. So the trick is to decay the pitch on there with a small decay. Use exponential cutoff slopes on your decays. This one controls the length of the note, so watch. Run into a filter, low pass it, but and then once it goes through the low pass filter, it goes through a saturator, which is actually re-adding harmonics back into it. Because that's what distortion does. It adds harmonics, and you never underestimate the power of like saturation and distortion on what it can do to your sounds. It can make things louder, more brighter, more harmonic. There's so much benefits with distortion. Now you might be thinking like, why am I running a decay into the mixer right here? And to tell you what, I don't know, because I was studying some other people's patches and stuff, and I'm like, why are they running a decay into the mixer? But it adds a weird little click, which just makes it more snappy. So if you're listening through headphones, listen. You could barely hear it, but it's like a tick. Barely hear it, but it's interesting. But if you bring the decay up to it, it starts sounding weird. It just dulls it a tiny, tiny bit if you take it off. So I don't really know what's going on. Maybe someone who's a bit more experienced can let me know what happens when you're putting a decay just into the mixer port of this. So that's how I achieve the kick. Snare, super easy. Just decayed white noise. That's all it is. But I also, I'm not even going to go into this one because it pretty much sounds the same. Just a little bit lower. I just blended the two together. I probably did some unnecessary steps in here, and that's why I don't want to go over it. It's like white noise, but see, I turned the pink all the way down, so this is just unnecessary. But I don't want to get into this just because of it might add some confusion to it. So if anything, make the same thing like this, but maybe run it through a filter or use like kind of pink noise and mix it in with your snare. But the trick is with this, I actually ran a distortion through it. Makes things just kind of louder, more aggressive. So that's what I did with the snares. The hat, same thing, but I also did an auto pan with it. So if you look, it's the same thing as the snare, but just barely any decay on it. And then just run it through high pass filter and then add a little bit of resonance to it to make it more. You be careful with the res because you can make things really harsh with it. So just slightly, just do it to taste. And I ran it through the auto pan just to make a kind of a wider stereo kind of effect. My bass, I like this bass. Sounds good. Now you might be wondering like what's with the dip in the volume on it. It's because everything's side chained right there. Huge side chain on it. Compression going on, but it gives it's absolutely necessary to get that real pumping effect to it. So with the bass, all it is, so the majority of the thing is the pulse width. That's how you're getting that static thing. So watch what happens when I unplug that. Maybe it's the FM that's going on. I know what it is. It's this distortion. I better put, the distortion on here. Look, see, I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's just experimentation with stuff. The width thing is actually really important to this, so watch what happens without the width. Just adds it a more wider sound to it. So I have the pulse width going into the FM and running out. This one's going into the width of the pulse. And then I added a sub to it going into 3, just to add a little bit of lower bass to it. And then ran it through a filter, into a saturator, and then out. I didn't even need this on here. I could have just deleted this, because sometimes I put it through the cut to see kind of what kind of sound I kind of want to make out of it, but it sounded good, just like this. Now, I should tell you, go over, I think now it would be a good time to go over what's going on. I dipped the bass a little bit on there, just so it could have more room for the kick on here, which it takes away from the lower end, but I ran it through the mastering app, and I rolled off like 40 under, like kind of a slope on the actual master chain, and it somehow just brought the bass up in such a good way that it actually works. So you'll notice that I have a lot of stuff that just cuts the bass, because it makes so much more of a clean mix when you cut out all the stuff that isn't necessary down there. Like a snare, you don't need lower end on your snare. So just keep that in mind. I think that's it for the actual intro. Yeah. So let's move on to over here. This is, I have all the elements together with the bass, but then the lead starts. So have a listen to the lead on here. Cut the bass on it, added a little bit of reverb, and then side chained. With the patch, this is, I think I've been over this quite a bit on my channel, but if you're new, the sound is produced by adding an attack envelope to the pitches on here and just bring them up. Now, the hard part is actually getting the pitches to be perfectly in tune with each other. I wish there was some sort of, excuse me, some sort of knob or some sort of indicator to let you know exactly where you're at to get them perfectly. Also, some of the aggressive kind of distortion is coming from FM in each other, running the FMs together, but turn the attenuators down on it so it's not totally aggressive. So you can make it totally sound horrible by putting too much FM on there, especially when they're doing it to when they're FMing each other. And then also lag processor. So run your note into the end and then outs into the notes on there, and you'll get like a portamento effect. And then high distortion to the fullest. Run it through a bandpass. I think I did the bandpass with this. I'm noticing some kind of weird, what's the sound? Almost like artifacts in with it there, and I don't know why that's coming through, but you can't hear it during the song, so I didn't really worry about it too much. Now with the laser thing, let's listen to the laser part. It just goes in from the melody into, and I just added a laser. Now, a laser is super easy to make. Let's just make it really quick. So the easiest way in my opinion, to make a laser is to put this to a sawtooth, add a LFO to here, let's put the gate on here so it doesn't just go crazy. And then now if you take the LFO, put it to the pitch, bring it up like this, now turn it up kind of fast and put it to a reverse saw or a regular saw. Maybe that's the reverse, this is regular. So it should sound... that's an easy way to do it, but I didn't do it that way. What I did was just, you can easily just put a decay onto here. Let's bring the sustain down, bring the decay. That's all I did with that, but then I think I added a big reverb to it. Let's check out the effects chain of the laser. Oh, auto pan and sidechain compression to the kick. Okay, so let's do the sweep. Sweep's fun, super easy to make. Let's just go to the sweep, hit this. So I added a delay effect and a big reverb, but just make an automation to it. So if you just hit this and then go, or you can do a riser with it. It's just put the automation on what you want to do. Let's just listen to the one I did. Where is it? Where's the sweep? Here we go. Let's listen to this. Let's listen to it with the music. This actually brings me to the next point of how I got this sound. Super easy. Let's just listen to it first. Just concentrate on the bass. Let's just listen to it into it. All it is now you got to be careful with this because you can make the sound really harsh, but when you're dropping the cutoff, it takes that static away. Let's solo this and I'll show you what it sounds like. See how it just takes all the kind of higher frequencies out and it's just real low. But when you bring that down, you can bring the res up and it'll give it that kind of, that cyberpunk effect. Hear that kind of noise with it. So as this, watch it again. We don't have to put in pattern, we can have it in song. But watch the filter on what it's doing. So when the cutoff's about halfway up, that's when the res started to kick in. If you bring the res up too fast, it's going to be super harsh. So you got to be careful with that. I think the last element of the song was the siren thing, which is, it sounds different because it's higher frequency, but if you bring it lower, you can hear the formants in it, the vowels. That's why I called it whoa, because it's all whoa, 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 and that's because there's an LFO on the cutoff. So if you take the LFO off the cut, huge difference. And that's how you're getting those formants in with it. And with this, super low rate. That's why it's like a riser. You hear it rising up. Let's actually turn this off. Because you put an LFO to the pitch, so it's starting really low and then bringing it and slowly bringing it up. That's how that was achieved in it, and it's panning back and forth because I have a what's it called? I have an auto pan on it. I've been into auto pan lately. Let me see here. Where was the siren? Yep, and I put width to it as well. You gotta be careful with the width. It can cause problems if you got, because people love to play with the width ones on there, and it can add problems very fast. Reverbed on it, and then, so notice again, man, I'm cutting the bass on pretty much everything. We don't need this anymore. And then just to leave room for the bass, because, man, you just want your sub elements to be left alone, man. Let them do their own thing, because a lot of this stuff has lower frequency information in it that is going to add muddiness to your lower end and just cause overall problems. So cut the basses, man. Just if it doesn't need bass, just cut it. And even if you think it does, cut it and hear how it sounds, and then even just add a little bit to it. Don't just leave all your EQs like straight up like this. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, whatever sounds good. That's the rule, man. There is no, the first rule is there are no rules, only guidelines to roughly follow. But if anything, man, if I give you guys advice, cut your lows on pretty much everything that doesn't need it, and you're going to notice a huge difference. I ran it through a limiter. Now the limiter is actually working pretty tough, but I think it's mostly just doing like the peaks of the kicks and the a big part of the snare. See, we were even hitting into the yellow on here. So what I did, I just left it, because usually when I bring it through a master, I'll turn everything down, not use the limiter. But in this case, I just left it, and then I ran, what's it called? I ran I'm using a different screen recorder, so I can't really show you what I did. Actually, no, yeah, I will. Here, I'll just use a different screen recorder and show you guys what I did with the master chain. So here's the master chain on it. Now, I'm not a professional, man, so like if I did something that you guys feel is wrong, please let me know in the comments. But for the most part, so usually before I would always use the imager right here at the beginning of the chain, but I thought about it, I'm like, why would I do that? What if I'm adding whatever I'm doing, why should I mono my lower? So I have 102 hertz monoed right here. So I usually do at the beginning, but I'm like, why should I do that right there? But I don't know if that's correct or not, but let's just go over some of the stuff I did with the graphic EQ. I put the 31 up just a little bit, and then with this is, I was telling you earlier how I did with one, you just go to 40 and then have like a kind of a high pass roll off on it. And it did a weird thing with the bass. So if we can hear it, let's turn this off and then turn it back on. Added just some extra bass by doing it. It was weird. And then I dropped a little bit in the kind of 500 range. So that's all I did with that. With the clipper, to take stress off of my limiter at the end, I ran a clipper. So it'll show up in red the stuff that's clipping. And that's just to get rid of some of the occasional high peaks and stuff. So your limiter isn't, if your limiter's working too hard, it's going to add a pumping effect to the song, which can totally ruin it. So just listen. You can tell when it's working down here, it'll just kind of pop up a little bit, and it's barely even doing anything, but it's chopping up some of those spikes. So then I ran it through a limiter, and it doesn't have too much ducking on it. I think like maybe -2. You don't really want more than like 2.5. I shouldn't say that, man. It's just whatever sounds good. But in my case, and I'm not a professional, I try not to have stuff duck more than 2.5 because that's when I notice it starts doing that weird pumping thing. It doesn't sound good. I did a really fast release on this. Dynamic range is at 8. Not really too great, but whatever, man. It's just what sounds good. I'm just saying words. So that's what I did for the mastering chain, if this means anything to you. So that's how I made the song.